In the last lesson, we created a simple label and we learnt about auto constraints and editing those. In this one, we'll look at what happens when we want to display a little more text, and for this we use something called a UI text view. So inside of our toolbox, let's scroll down. We have a text field, which isn't the one we want. We're going to cover that in the next lecture. Let's scroll up, and in fact in the toolbox let's type text, and here we have a UI text view. You'll notice that controls and data views are different sections for text views and text fields. Drag and drop a text view onto your screen. You'll notice it auto-populates a standard bit of Latin text for you. Let's give this a name. So with it selected, scroll up in your properties area and drop in a name. Let's have this as text view. Now I would like to position this text view along the bottom of my app. So what I can do is I can drag these little handles at the side here that will then expand it. Or if I click the item again, you'll notice I get these pins that appear on the side. And these allow me to add constraints. So rather than clicking the auto constraint button at the top, I can add constraints one by one. So I'm going to click this side one on the left, and I'm going to drag it over to the edge of my view controller and release. Now I'm going to click that constraint, and inside of my properties widget, I'm going to change its constant value to 10. And now you will notice that it drops a plus 98, and what it's saying is the current position doesn't reflect where it's actually going to be when you run the app. So we can ignore that for now. Let's click our item again and pin another constraint to the bottom. Let's click that one. And what I'm going to do is change that one to 10. And I'm going to do the same to the right hand side. And you guessed it, let's drop in a value there of 10. Now this needs a height. So click our object, and on the left and right hand, or rather on the right hand side and the bottom, just next to the pin constraint, we have this little I bar. And if you hover over it, it says click to pin the size of this view. When you do that, you can set a height and an aspect ratio. We'll just set the height. And when that's done, click the orange bar and set your height to any value you wish. I'm going to set this to maybe 150. Right, you'll notice in the designer that we have our text field, and just below that we have this orange outline that tells us where the text field is actually going to be. How do we update our display? Well, click anywhere in the display, up at the top, click the button that says Update Frames Based on Constraints. And let me just try and click that. There we go. So sometimes you actually have to select the element itself to actually update it. I thought it was the whole designer, and if I'm not mistaken, it used to be like that, but it is what it is now. So now all of these constraints at the side are colored blue, and this tells us there are enough constraints to position this element whenever our app is loaded, regardless of the screen size. All right, that concludes how to manually add constraints, and you've also learnt how to create a text view. A text view is a view that you use to display a scrolling list of text that a user cannot or should not edit.